What you guys are about to learn in this video will honestly leave you speechless. And after the next 7 minutes and 56 seconds, there's a good chance that your life will change forever, because once you fully comprehend what I'm about to tell you, there's really no going back. Now, the most prominent and most dominant desire for pretty much everyone who is poor is, how do I go from where I am now, which is totally broke and barely able to afford to put gas in my car, to living a life where money is no longer a concern? What I'm about to share with you is quite literally a map for how to do exactly what I just said, but it will only work for you if you really and truly pay attention. Number one, imagination. Now, the first part of the map is arguably the most important, because without imagination, we wouldn't be able to achieve anything. Every Ferrari, every skyscraper, every incredible thing that exists in the real physical world had to first be imagined in somebody's mind. This is a fact. So the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to imagine what exactly it is that you want, but you also have to be extremely clear about it. Now, at the expense of sounding kind of corny, I'll tell you exactly what I did. What I used to do when I was at my poorest is I would imagine myself driving around in my favorite car, which at the time was a Lamborghini Gallardo. And since a young age, I was totally obsessed with cars. And the first time that I saw a Lamborghini, I knew that someday I had to have one. And I'm not going to lie and say that I only wanted the car because I like cars. Part of the reason why I wanted that car and why I imagined myself driving around in that specific car was because I wanted the status, but it was also because I wanted the power. And if you guys have never drove a Lambo, save up a couple $1,000s, go and rent one for a day, because I promise you that after this experience, you will never want to drive a basic car ever again. So what I would do is I would imagine myself pulling up to certain places in this car, but the most important thing about this process is not the actual visual image. The most important part about this process is the feeling. You see, what I did was I imagined what it would actually feel like to drive the car, and I imagined what it would feel like to be the powerful person who was behind the wheel, because at the time, I was still really skinny, and I was pretty insecure about my size and about how weak I was. So part of what drove me, and if I'm totally honest with myself, part of what still drives me to this day, is the amazing experience of feeling powerful, because we all know that at its core, money is power. So along with imagining myself driving the car, I did something else that played a huge role in my success, and it was that every other day or so I would drive up into wealthy neighborhoods where all the big fancy homes were, and when I would drive back home, I would imagine what it would actually feel like to live inside of one of those homes. The only problem with imagination is that your imagination is not actually tangible. You see, our brain literally doesn't know the difference between something that we imagine and something that is not real. This is why if I have to give a speech, if I imagine before the speech that everybody's going to laugh at me and make me feel really stupid, I can actually physically feel the same feelings that I would experience during that imagined scenario, even if that scenario is not actually occurring. You see, imagination has such a profound effect on us that you could literally suggest to somebody that their fingers are on fire, and due to the power of imagination, they might actually physically feel like their fingers are on fire, even though nothing was ever really on fire. So to go from totally broke with absolutely nothing in your bank account to becoming a millionaire quickly, it all starts with your imagination, and it all starts with visualizing every single day what it would feel like to be where you want to be, and what it would feel like to have what you wish to have. You see, our imagination is the ability to see things that do not yet exist. We have to realize that these are things that do not exist yet, meaning even though they're not real yet, they will eventually be real someday. Number two is faith. So after you start imagining the things you want or the wealth that you want, you have to actually believe that these things are attainable. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this, or to make sure that you believe that you can achieve what you have imagined in your head. And the first way is commonly used by people who have already gotten rich and then lost it all and then made it all back. And it's simply having a belief just based on the fact that you have already done it. But if you ever end up getting rich and you go broke, this is a powerful way to give yourself the belief that you need to make it all back. Because if you've done it before, then you can do it again. I'll repeat that. If you've done it before, you can do it again. So first you have to start with your imagination, and then you have to move on to faith, because faith is what you need to believe that it's actually possible. So most of you watching will have no trouble with the imagination part, but how can you have the faith, or how can you have the belief that what you imagine you can actually obtain if you haven't actually done it yet? And the answer to this is actually pretty simple. See, before I had ever achieved what I imagined, all that I did to be able to gain the faith that I needed to believe that I could do it was simply find other people who had already done it. And I actually vividly remember that one of the turning points for me in my own life, or one of the secrets that changed everything for me, was a moment where I was sitting on my bed looking at other people who had done what I was trying to do, and I actually did the same exact thing with YouTube. Most of you don't know this, but I actually have several YouTube channels, one of which has made almost $1 million alone, but before I was able to achieve that, I needed a little something called faith. And what I needed was the belief that I could actually do it too. And one day, I was browsing YouTube and I found a channel that interested me. And the guy who made that channel talked about how much money he was making with it. And when I looked at what he was doing, I thought to myself, like all the other people who have copied the channels that I've made, I basically thought to myself, yeah, you know what? I could actually do that. And then right then and there, I had found the second most important ingredient for the formula to success, and it was the belief that I could do it. And this belief came from seeing that some other ordinary guy who was just like myself at the time was able to create something that made him tons of money. And so now I had the imagination, now I had the faith or the belief that it was possible, but unfortunately the dream that I had was not real yet. You see, faith and imagination are very real, and so like our imagination, our belief or our faith in something has very, very real effects on our life and the decisions that we make that will ultimately determine if we are able to become rich or not. For example, if you look at something like oxygen, the air that we breathe, technically we can't see, but if we were to live on an earth with no air, it would totally kill us. You see, our faith or our belief is something that can't be seen, but the effect that it has on our life is very real, because he who believes he can and he who believes he can't are both usually right. So the words that are coming out of your speaker right now, technically you can't see them, but they can still have a profound effect on you and what you will choose to do when you are finished watching this video. And faith or belief operates in the same exact way. So once you have imagination and once you have faith, there is still one thing that is missing, and without this one thing, imagination and faith will always remain intangible and unusable. And so the third thing, and arguably the most important, is a little something called action. Because without action, it doesn't matter how much faith you have or how often you imagine yourself behind the wheel of a powerful Lambo or living in some expensive home. It is action that is the thing that brings our imagination and our belief into our physical reality. You see, action is pretty much like a bridge, because without the bridge, you cannot bring the things that you have imagined into your reality. And so action, or execution as I like to call it, is the magic ingredient that pretty much allows us to turn the intangible into the tangible. Action is what allows us to turn the unseen into things that can be seen in the real world. And although these are the three original rules, I'm going to add a fourth one, and I'm going to say that the fourth rule is consistency. See, going from totally broke to millionaire is actually really easy. It just requires that you do these three things every single day with no excuses. Every single day from the moment that you wake up, first imagine, then believe, and then execute. And with that said, I'm Julian. This is The New Rich. And until next time, I want to thank you guys so much for watching.